Hello and welcome back to Parenting Unpacked. You are here with me, Dr. Siobhan Kennedy Costantini, and Dr. Kristen Summer. Hello, Kristen.
Hi, Siobhan. How are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. My mental bandwidth is a bit low at the moment, but other than that, I'm okay.
Oh, lovely. I am also doing okay. The people in the house behind me are doing a lot of construction, so there may or may not be some loud and unpleasant noises, for which I apologize.
It's okay. We'll let you go this time, but like next time, Siobhan,
Have a chat
find
to
a
the
better
builders
space.
and organize my schedule. I get it. I hear you.
Hire a studio. Honestly, Siobhan, what are you doing?
I know.
I'm
I call
kidding,
myself a
obviously.
professional.
Do you?
I don't. No.
I don't. No. Anyways, Siobhan, what's new this week?
That's a good question. See, I know you're going to ask me this every week, but I don't. It's like, you know how you just panic? The doctor goes, "What's wrong with you?" And you go, "Oh, wait, I should have thought about this."
Yeah.
Yes, no, things are good. My little one's a bit of a sensitive soul, but that's kind of his vibe for many months now.
Oh.
He's back in like hardcore daddy favorite phase, which I'm here for.
I'm
I
jealous.
love it. Yeah, there's lots of, no, mummy, need daddy. I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. Go
jealous.
hang out with him.
Oh, we've never had a daddy favorite stage in my life.
No, it's
and I
great.
am tired.
I can get that. No, it's really great. He was a mummy's boy for a couple of months, which is fine. Like I also like the cuddles. And the good thing for us is that when he's in one or the other, it's neither or the other is completely shut out. It's more that he just has a slight preference.
Yeah.
And my husband, he was happy being kind of second, but then he had said, "Oh, I kind of miss being his favorite." And then he was his favorite for about a day, and then he went, "Oh, it can go back to how it was."
That's good. We like that. As long as it's taking some of the burden off of you, that's nice.
Exactly. No, so that's going well. Daycare drop-offs have been a bit hard, and we've been particularly Mondays. Mondays are always the worst, right?
They are.
So what we've been doing, we've started printing off photos of whatever we did that weekend and taking them in, and we make a big song and dance about how we can show your educators what you did on the weekend. You can show them this photo and this photo, and we can tell them all about what we did.
So cute.
Yeah, so we did that again this week, and we went to on the weekend, we went to a recycling, like containers for change.
Yeah.
So for our international listeners, Australia has this like recycle program where drinks like beer bottles or soft drink cans can be recycled for 10 cents a can. So we've been collecting them, and my in-laws have been collecting theirs. And you go in and there's like a hole in the wall vending machine, and you poke the bottle through and you press the button and the robot takes it. And so we sent all our cans, and we've opened a little savings account for him, so the money goes into his. So that was really fun, and that was cool to kind of insert those in. But that's pretty much, and we had a cousin play date, but that's kind of all we've been doing. What about you? What's new in your land?
Oh, look, Siobhan, it's never, ever boring in my life. So the day after we recorded our last episode, in the morning at like 6 o'clock, like Sienna and I had gotten up. My husband was away in Townsville, I think. So like, a couple hours flight. And Sienna and I were playing in Tokyo. Our dog was just hanging out somewhere. He was fine. He'd been fine all morning. And then he came out of nowhere and he looked wrong. Something looked wrong with him. And so I was like, oh, maybe you need to go to the toilet. So I took him out to the bathroom, and he was walking strange. And then I picked him up, and he was panting in pain. And I was like instantly just like, something's wrong. Like something is not okay. He's in pain. Like something's hurting. So I had to bundle my kid, my dog in the car. I didn't know how long I'd be at the emergency vet for. So I was like chucking like food and water in for Sienna without
trying to get supplies.
Trying to like not injure my dog any further because it was his back. Like, and I could tell that it was his back. So we were like racing around to like, have to get the kid and the dog to the emergency vet, because of course I only ever have to take the dog to the emergency vet when Ryan is away, which is it's great. It's so great.
Yeah.
And
fun,
like
fun for the whole family.
And when I realized something was wrong, like my anxiety like took over my body, where it was like my body went cold, and that's what usually happens before I pass out. And in my brain, I'm just like, I cannot pass out right now. I'm holding my dog who, like, I don't know what happened to his back, but it's not okay. And my kid's here and I'm all alone. Like, I cannot pass out right now. Didn't pass out. Think it was just an anxiety reaction. Whatever. Got through it. Got to the emergency vet. By the time I got there, he was starting to fall over because he couldn't feel his back legs. So like we'd obviously caught it really early. It's what's called a bulging disc. And it was compressing his spinal cord and reducing his feeling to his legs. So he was getting like partial paralysis and ataxia and stuff like that. And apparently it's really common in dogs, but yeah, so it's, it was hectic. He was with the he was at the vet for 2 days. And my husband who was really worried. Like my husband was just like away and so worried about everything. And I'm just like, got to just power through. So he was doing the worrying and the Googling, which was making him worry more. And I'm just like trying to survive.
You don't have time to worry. You just have to power ahead.
You just have to keep going. So we went to the vet, really adorably. The vet who like did our intake follows my TikTok. So like I felt
nice.
Safe. I was like, oh, you're a friend. You'll look after Tokyo. But anyway, so basically we avoided back surgery for Tokyo. But it very, very easily could have become that. And he could deteriorate is what the vet said. So we have to keep him on strict like rest for 4 weeks. And he is a toy poodle, so he jumps. I was
about to say he's a very happy, bouncy.
Oh, I know.
Like busy dog.
Yeah. So basically for the first couple of days, once we got him home, we nursed him the whole time because he was all over the place. He's also super anxious. So he came home from the vet terrified. And I just got a glimpse into what newborn life would be like. Like if I had another baby right now, like it's like turned my husband even further away from having a second kid right now. I was just like, oh my God. But yeah, so we were nursing the dog for most of the weekend. We got a dog pram, because he literally can't walk anywhere and he'll go crazy if he stays inside. So we have like a dog pram to take him to the cafe with us. We've got 2 pens, like one's a big one for him to like, he can't jump in it. He can just like walk around a little bit and that's all he's allowed to do. That lives in our lounge room. And he doesn't like being in there. If we're on the couch, he just like taps and cries until we put him on our lap, which is ridiculous. And then he's got a little baby one because, fun fact, my husband is away this week for the entire week as well in Sydney. So I have a little baby pen sleeping next to me because usually the dog sleeps in bed with us and he cries if he doesn't. So he's in this little pen so that when he wakes up, because he's anxious and he's attached to my husband, so every time he hears a noise, he tries to launch off the bed and like race to the door, and that will quite literally break his back. So yeah, it's been a minute.
You've just been a touch busy.
Yeah, I know I'm working from home for the week because my workplace won't let me bring him in, which is just crazy. But like, whatever, like I'll work from home. Like you're trying to like engender like people to come back to work or encourage whatever, but you won't let us bring our animals. So like, fine, I'll just stay out of the office for a week and let my dog recover a little bit. But he's got to do this for 4 weeks, so it's great. We're those people now that have a dog in a pram, and it's just ridiculous. Like, we are those people now.
No, look, who cares?
I know, but like, it's just so ironic because we used to judge those people so hard. Like, be like, that's ridiculous. I'm like,
isn't that
it's
beautiful?
No longer ridiculous.
Exactly. See, you never know why people are doing what they're doing.
I know.
Everyone has their reasons.
I know. I feel like a horrible human for ever having a sideways thought about people with their dogs with prams. And now I'm one of them. I know.
Judging is part of human nature.
It's like when people judge parents before they become parents. I've had plenty of those thoughts. And now I eat my own thoughts. Eat my own words, thoughts, whatever. Anyways, that's me for this week. That's it.
Oh, goodness. That's more than enough for a couple of months, let alone a week. So that sounds...
But I'm healthy. I'm healthy now. I'm finally not sick anymore. I've been sick for like a month.
You didn't pass out?
I didn't pass out. Like my anxiety levels are higher than usual. But that's okay.
You've also got more on your plate than usual, so that's a perfectly reasonable response.
I have a husband who's been away like 3 out of the last 4 weeks. So yeah, you're right.
That makes life hard. You're solo parenting. That's hard at the best times. Regarding like you being sick, do you know? I work in childcare centres. I go and visit childcare centres all over Brisbane, and I've spoken to so many educators and like people that have been in the industry for 20 plus years, and they have said that this winter is the worst winter for sickness they have ever seen.
It is fucked. Like it is just. But like the irony is we weren't sick while we were in Scotland, despite the fact we were traveling on multiple planes. We were around lots and lots of people. Like Europe has more COVID cases than Australia, like all this shit. And we didn't get sick. I got sick after I got back home.
Yeah, that makes sense though from like an immunological perspective. Like your body has a big breath out and then the sickness comes in.
Yeah. But like you'd think that we would have caught like COVID when we were on planes or something, but no. We haven't caught COVID yet that we know of.
I was going to ask, have you had it yet? No.
I don't, not that we know of. Like I was testing when I first got sick, I was testing lots and it never came up positive. So I don't know. And I tested a fair bit when we were in Scotland because it was like a requirement of the institute. But no. I know. So whatever.
Just beautiful, fun-loving, low-level sickness that doesn't go away.
There was nothing about low level. It was not low level for a while there. But it went for a month. Like, Still trying to figure out if it was half like the breastfeeding thing because like my husband didn't get that sick. Like stopping breastfeeding. Maybe I had like a big dip in my immune system as it was just like, oh, finally.
Maybe. I mean, I think it's just a rough year for it. Like all that adenovirus and RSV and everything's going around.
I'm not here for it. But Siobhan, do you know what I am here for?
What are you here for?
I'm here for our chat about time out today.
Yeah. So I was talking. So I was on Instagram, as that's where we spend a lot of our time, and
that's where we live.
I saw a post talking about talking about time out, and it made me think from a very reputable source, but it made me think, it's not that it's brave. I don't think it's brave to talk about time out, but that it's not kind of the in thing that I know there's a lot of pushback against time out, understandably, to some point. There's kind of this push and preference for time in. And I wanted to talk with you and for the benefit of our listeners about kind of what the differences are between time out versus time in, what functions they serve and when and why they might be appropriate behavior management techniques. So before we jump into the specifics of it all, I've just from your personal experience, have you ever done either time out or time in with Sienna?
I've never done time out because that for my child would be something that would be quite harmful to her, especially at this age and stage in development. She would not respond well to it. It wouldn't do what we want it to do anyways. So we've never done time out and we've never called it time in like explicitly to her, but literally every time she gets overwhelmed, I drop down to her level. Or she does something naughty or anything like that. I drop down to her level. I speak calmly and quietly and I ask her what's going on. Like I ask her, how's your body feeling? All right, let's do this. Let's go and sit down and play with your fidgets or your calm toys, or we have like a calm corner. So I don't explicitly call it time in, but that's essentially what it is. It's time co-regulating with her. And that's my primary method of resetting the situation, I guess. Like I think people call timeouts and time ins like a reset, right?
Yeah, I mean, lots of people do. I think that's a great way to do it. And I think you raised such a good point about how you know that for Sienna, that's not a good fit. And I think that's so relevant because it is temperament dependent. It's child dependent. And what works for one child won't necessarily work for another. We have used both time out and time in for Timo. Importantly, for time out, although it's tricky, this is where actually the difference between the two kind of gets murky. We very rarely don't go into time out with him. One or the other of us will do it. Typically, we only really use timeout when he's done something that is potentially damaging to the relationship with one or the other of us. So it's he's hit us or tried to hurt us, and not just exciting and like whacked the ball, or it's like a deliberate acting out in anger. And we're very diligent about how it's okay to be angry. It's not okay to use our anger to hurt people. And so what we typically do in that situation is the person who wasn't injured will take him to his room.
Yeah.
Or usually it's his room because he tends to only act that way at home, because that's his safe place to feel all his feelings, big and small. So one of us will take him to his room and kind of sit with him. If we're angry with him, we will, it then becomes a timeout, but not because of him, but because of it's safer and better for him to be away from us.
Yes.
Because we don't want to react from a place of anger. So it's an opportunity for us both to regroup, in which case that kind of slightly becomes a time in. I don't know.
Yeah, it's complicated. It's murky.
Exactly. But from my understanding, typically, and there's different definitions, but the ones we'll be talking about today is that timeout is seen as a separation, a social isolation, as a quote unquote punishment for an undesirable behavior, whereas a time in is an opportunity for the child to regulate themselves. So whether that's through co-regulation or self-regulation, internally or externally with objects. And again, this will depend on the age of the child as well. Like a 10-year-old won't necessarily need you to sit with them, although that can be useful too, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we know that like it's around 12, I think, when self-regulation really starts to kick off. So even under 12, like co-regulation still shouldn't be something that's withheld unless like the child doesn't like co-regulation, because there are definitely temperaments of children who like to be reclusive, who like to separate themselves and give themselves a time out, because a time in would be more overwhelming than a time out. Like, whereas my daughter is more time in than time out. Yeah.
That is their time in. Like for that kind of child, that they're seeking what is soothing to themselves.
Yeah.
So
look,
separating.
I think it's so murky. I think the definition of timeout kind of has to broaden. I mean, we've got that really old school definition and all the research on it. We know that timeouts are okay, and they are something you can use. They're generally the last stop on when everything else hasn't worked. It's the last tool you can use, because otherwise you're probably about to flip out and spank your kid because you're getting dysregulated as well. So we know that. But I think in terms of like helping a child reset, because usually children are sent to timeout because they are becoming unruly and overwhelming and hard for the parent to handle. It's usually a reset when the parent can't think of what else to do, correct?
Well, obviously every person will use it slightly differently. So you can also use timeout in a much more, not that I necessarily this is a good thing or a bad thing, but you can use it as a more proactive thing. Like if you, like, it doesn't have to be just because they're overwhelmed. Like I guess timeout in its purest form is behaviorism.
Yes, it is.
You're removing, and even if it's the same activity, timeout is rooted in behaviorism. It's about conditioning. It's about removing reward or removing stimulation. Whereas viewing it as a time in is creating opportunity for separation from what is stressful and adding something to help that child become less stressed and calm their nervous system. So the act of time in and time out could be the same thing, but it's all about framing the goal of the task. Like, why are you sending them away, or why are you going away with them? What are you trying to get out of it? Are you trying to remove them from a situation to punish them, or are you trying to give them an opportunity to calm down? And both can be useful in different ways.
Yeah. And I think the thing that gets stuck in my head when I think about traditional timeout is the way it was used when we were kids, which was go to your room and think about what you've done. And like, guys, kids don't quite have the attention span, the impulse control, the self-regulation, all that fancy good stuff we see in the prefrontal cortex and stuff. to do that necessarily, to be like, go and think about what you've done. They're not going to think about it, especially in the way that you want them to. So rather saying, go to your room for 5 minutes, and then we will talk afterwards. And it's usually a de-escalation strategy. It's not there necessarily to be a punishment. I think even the research on it, when Triple P teaches it, it's more of a de-escalation strategy, and you're meant to use it after time in. And time in for Triple P that I've seen is like having a space in the house, like a little stool in the kitchen, which is next to the parent while they're preparing dinner or something. And the child sits there, and the parent doesn't interact with the child, but the child is still there with the parent. And it's a way to just like, stop what they were doing and put them in a space. I really find it confusing. Like, if it's not to like reset that negative behavior that's happening because they're obviously in a spiral, like I don't really know what it is. Like, I'm having such a hard time grappling it today.
I think it really depends on the age of the child. Like expecting that of a 2-year-old is quite unreasonable in my opinion, because firstly, children of that age, so many of them require movement in order to get their feelings out of their body.
Yeah.
So I think it's very unreasonable to expect a 2-year-old to do that. A 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, I think that's perfectly reasonable, depending on the child. It's, again, very child dependent. And similarly, timeout can be useful depending on the child. Like if you have a little girl who's desperate to play with her brothers and sisters and she's being cruel and awful to them, removing her object of desire, that is playing with them, as a way to redirect her behavior, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Because if you think about it, like social interactions, the natural consequence, so none of the time-ins and time-outs, none of those are natural consequences. No. We talk about natural consequences, we're talking about things that would happen in society or in the environment regardless. So the natural consequence of treating people terribly is that they don't want to interact with you anymore. So we could let our children do whatever they want and have no friends, but that's not that, like, we want to protect our children from social rejection, because it's one of the worst things. Small children or humans, let's be honest, social rejection is one of the most painful things for humans to experience because we're a social species. So we want to, a lot of the reason we're trying to change this behavior is because we don't want that outcome for our kids. So we kind of give them a safe taste of social rejection by creating a timeout and be like, if you hit your sister in the head with a doll, she won't want to play with you. So she will do this to you over time anyway. And I'm trying to create an opportunity for you to recognize that being away from your sister is painful. And it's because you did this thing. Does that make sense? Am I just talking?
No, it does make sense. I think it also depends on the age of the child. If a 7-year-old does that, you can send them to their room. I don't think you should ever lock a child in a room. So it needs to be a child that has that impulse control. For a child, let's say that's 2 or 3 or 4, if they do something like that, generally what you do if they're hitting their sibling or whatever is you take the child who's being hit away to protect their body. And I do this too with my daughter all the time when she smacks me or tries to bite me because she's frustrated. She's an easily frustrated human, and that's not surprising given who I am. But yeah, when she does it to me, I tell her, like, I have to move away now and calm my body down. And yeah, so that's like it's all on a spectrum, as with everything else. Like all of these, I wouldn't call them punishments. I would call them discipline, exist on a spectrum. Punishments like kind of implies behaviorism, and I just don't know where timeout fits. Like very old school timeout, yeah, that fits on the spectrum. But in terms of the way most people approach kids and understand their cognitive development and things like that now, I wouldn't call timeout behaviorism anymore, because I think for timeout to be behaviorism, they have to be locked in a room and they cannot control whether they can come out or not. So timeout in the essence where they can let themselves out, where they can walk out, is kind of a practice of self-control, self-regulation, and understanding that their behavior has consequences related to the action that they did. And we know that timeouts have a bunch of science behind them. They do work. But again, they are a very punitive type of discipline. And it's probably not the best one because it's definitely not a related consequence. And we know that related consequences are the best type of discipline. From the evidence, we know that anything that's related to the behavior is the best type. So unless it's something like what you're talking about, if it's an antisocial behavior, then yeah, the related consequence is that you are secluded from the social situation for an age-dependent amount of time. And it's not very long, even for an older child. We don't separate children for very long at all, because it may escalate even further if you start to ostracize them too much. So it's definitely not something that we should do, I think, at all with little kids, unless it's a temperament thing where they want to be left alone. I don't think we should do it with 2 and 3 year olds by putting them in a naughty corner. Like, that naughty corner thing just kills me. What I do think we should do is we can excuse ourselves if we're feeling overwhelmed, and we can remove ourselves from the situation rather than removing the child. We can kind of switch tacks and do things like, if the child is starting to escalate and get really angry, we can switch tacks and talk quietly, or offer to move to a different location. Like going outside always works really well at like switching and being a reset button. There's so many things we can do with our little ones that don't involve the social ostracism of time out. That doesn't really work for that child. It doesn't teach them anything. So
I think that's such a good point. And when it comes to time in, and I've found that I really emphasize sensory information with time in, and that's exactly what you're talking about. Going outside, it's a sensory delight. There's things that you can look and see and smell and hear. If we can't go outside, we sometimes have a bath. Particularly on really hard days, we have like 3 and 4 baths.
We have a pool.
Even better. As an adult, I find showers very regulating.
Yes, I like it. I like warm water.
Like I remember one time, it was at the beginning of my PhD, and I had to write this chapter, and I think we lost power, and I hadn't been good, and I hadn't been saving my work. Yes, I know. And I know. Look, this was in like 2012 or something. No,
my
still
goodness.
No excuse. It was very bad.
No.
But I lost a whole bunch of my work, and I was borderline panic attack. So my husband, we were living together at the time, he heard me slam my computer shut and walk into the bathroom and just turn the shower on. And he walked in and said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, nope, everything's terrible. Thankfully, I managed to recover it. I went, got my hard drive retrieved and downloaded some fancy pants software and figured it out. But anyway, that's beside the point. Yes, adults and people can often find water very regulating, but I really kind of emphasize. My little one had a massive meltdown in Bunnings the other day because he was due for a nap. Bunnings is a hardware store, and he's like, I was doing the full on football carry with a screaming, kicking child, and all of the adults that I was walking past in the aisle were smiling, giving me that oh shit kind of face. So
we've been there.
Very sweet. Yep. His shoes were flying. His hat went off. He dropped his blankie. People were picking them up for me. Everyone was really, really sweet. It was wonderful.
Yeah, we love that.
But it worked a little bit. It didn't work entirely. We ended up just having to leave, which is how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
But I found things that were nice and scratchy or fluffy. And I was like, how does this one feel? How does this one feel? And it kind of brought him out of it for a bit and kind of helped him calm down a bit. But, then we started again.
Well, I feel like that's the idea of a calm corner, right?
Exactly.
A calm corner is a bunch of fidgets or sensory engagement that helps the child focus on things they can see, touch, smell, hear, and whatever the other one, taste. There's not really anything you can taste, but she'll put lots of things in her mouth.
They put everything in their mouth anyway, exactly. Yeah. But I think it's so interesting is that when it comes to, these are all grounding activities, and it's what so many therapists teach adults to do for their own emotional regulation. There's that thing about if you're having an anxiety spiral or if you're feeling just disconnected or dissociated from yourself, whether that's because of depression, anxiety, or any number of other things. It's look around for 5 things you can see, listen out for 4 things you can hear, et cetera, et cetera. It's a way of trying to ground us in our body rather than in our kind of distressed and cyclical cognitive states.
Absolutely. I never even realized this is something that we do. Like, I guess like it's just, it comes naturally to us because we've been taught this kind of stuff for years. But the other thing that I do that I think I learned in therapy as well with my kid is that if she's starting to spiral out of control and it seems like there's not a good reason for it, that's when I ask her, how does your body feel? Like, are you feeling hungry? No. Are you feeling tired? No. Does your belly hurt? No. Do you need to go to the toilet? No. And we just kind of like work through like, how does her body feel as a way to like connect feelings with physiological sensations to try and figure out why it is that we're feeling overwhelmed. And now this isn't going to work for a ton of kids, but it works for her.
Awesome.
Because I mean, as a person with autism, I trained myself to dissociate my mind from my body when I was very young. And I'm now only just starting to reconnect the two. And I guess when I've got a sensitive child who may or may not share my genetics, it's something I want to make sure that she knows how to do. And it's something that she likes to do. So she prefers that over sensory activities. She prefers to talk to me and listen to me and just kind of touch me. So yeah, everything different works for every kid. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, of course. But that's really good that you've got a thing that works for you. For a little while, it's not one of our current go-tos, but actually when Timo, he was quite young, we were both amazed that it worked, my husband and I. He must have been about 12 months old because he just started having tantrums and we're like, oh no. And I think my husband started modeling it. He would do big arm stretches and breathe in and out really deeply and just do it in front of Timo. And then Timo he'd do it the same. And because obviously around 12-ish months of age is peak imitation. They're copying everything we're doing. Yeah. So he just started copying it. He obviously had no real knowledge of what was happening or why, but it was a way to hack into his breathing and try to regulate his breathing. Sometimes he'll, now we talk through it and say, we're going to take a big breath and we're going to calm our body down. Sometimes he does it. Sometimes he goes, I'm not calm. I don't want to breathe. And I go, okay, whatever.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You get to use whatever tools work for you when you want them to work for you.
Totally.
Yeah. Sienna hates it. She hates breathing herself, but she does let me breathe. So if I'm starting to feel overwhelmed at her, because I can't usually separate myself from her because that makes things worse, I'll be like, I need to breathe. And then I'll start breathing and she'll eventually like after like a minute stop crying and just wait for me to stop breathing, and rejoin her. So yeah, it's different things work for different kids and different families, I guess. But Siobhan, bad news. We've run out of time for today.
Oh no. I mean,
I know.
It's exciting that it goes quickly, but
short and sharp.
Exactly. No problem. Well, we will see you. Well, you won't see us. You'll hear us even better.
You'll hear us. Yeah.
In the next one, where we'll get to talk about whatever topic we decide on the day.
Exactly. All right. See you later.
See ya. Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye.